Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Visual Studio Toolbox. It's a super special one because we're of course talking about the latest, greatest Visual Studio release. Like this is a big one, y'all, very exciting. So to kick things off, I'm Leslie, one of your hosts, and
I'm
joined
Robert,
by
another one of your hosts. Thank you for
Cool.
jumping in.
And we're also joined by members of the Visual Studio team who have been working their butts off to give y'all this cool release. So let's just go around and introduce. I'll let them go around and introduce themselves. So, Harshada, you're up.
Hey everyone, I'm Harshada. I'm a product manager in Visual Studio's debugging and profiling team.
Awesome.
I'm nominated next.
Cool.
I can go next. So I'm Andy Sterland. I have the privilege of leading the PM team, the product management team for Visual Studio. And Rachel, I'll pick on you next since you're next on my screen.
Hi, folks. I'm Rachel. I take she, her, hers. I'm a product manager on the team. You might know me from .NET Maui if you've seen the streams over there. And lately, I've been working on Copilot and accessibility in Visual Studio. Mads?
Yeah, I'm Mads Kristensen. I'm a product manager on the Visual Studio and the community team, and a 25-year Visual Studio user, and very, very excited about this new release that we're going to talk about today.
Ooh.
Yeah. Cool. So yeah, this episode is all about the latest Insiders release, Preview 1. It just, Visual Studio 2026 Insiders, to give you the full name. It just hit the ground running publicly yesterday. So yeah, if you haven't tried it out yet, you totally should. So a couple calls to action. There is a blog post all about it that we're going to link that has a good overview of all the latest, greatest stuff that we're going to be chatting about today. And you also should definitely check out the release notes. It's packed with every single new feature addition that's happening across Visual Studio 2026 Insiders Preview 1. And of course, download the thing if you haven't already. You can try it out today.
I think the first thing you'll notice when you install it is that it looks at your settings of your previous version and just copies them over, which means you don't have to go through the install tool and go to the individual components and make sure everything's checked. It just says, hey, this is what you had. How about we keep that? Which is awesome. And then to me, I have installed many Visual Studios. It seemed faster than usual.
Yeah. And we're definitely gonna get into that too. So, and before we do, real quick, my final call to action: once you do download it, be sure to share your feedback. A lot of the tools that we're going to talk about today were created because you shared your feedback. So keep doing it. And last but not least, this is going to be more of a roundtable discussion. We're just going to talk about why you should use certain tools and why you should just use the Insiders build overall. But if you want to see more in-depth actual demos about the features that we're talking about, stay tuned because we will be doing some specific Toolbox episodes around particular features at the same time that more blog releases come out. So check out the blog, keep watching the show, and you're going to find out everything you need to know. And last but certainly not least, be sure to share all your questions in the chat. We will do our best to answer as many of them as we can. And yeah, let's kick things off.
So that's a good first question.
Yeah.
Lazy Panda, the installation process is faster or VS itself? Both.
Both. I installed Visual Studio without porting anything from the old Visual Studio 2022 yesterday. So the same bits that everybody else had access to. And I think it took 2.5 minutes. I was surprised myself because I've actually gone through and done the updates because we are on the kind of the internal builds. So it's the first time I did a clean install, just like someone on a brand new machine would do. And I was very, very surprised at how fast that was. So that was very cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. So just to start with the overview, I mean, we're calling it Insiders right now. That's a new word we haven't really associated with Visual Studio before. So Andy and maybe Mads, if you want to talk about where did that come from and what were some of the general themes that came about when putting 2026 together?
Yeah, like you were saying, 2026 is a big release for us, and I think it really represents a bit of a change in how we're working. how we think of the releases ourselves. Like, obviously for the longest time we've used preview, and the idea here has been like, hey, you can preview the latest features, get them ahead of when they come to the GA or the release channel. But I think with this release and going forward, we're more interested in like collaborating and working with people in the community, like people who want to use the product early for feedback, but also as an extension author or a partner who is wanting to build on top of Visual Studio. So we really want to firstly like change the dynamics. This is all about us collaborating and having insiders. Like one of the things that we did, and I think we mentioned, is we had MVPs, obviously some of our insiders, use the product for months ahead of this release. And so with that kind of shift in our how we want to talk about it, and hopefully over time we'll increase the cadence of how often we ship these things, and how everyone will be able to work with us, get on the latest bits, and work with us, versus a preview of which sounds more one way, if that makes sense, versus insiders where we want to really collaborate and get feedback early and like help enable people to partner and build on top of Visual Studio.
Cool. I gotta say, I love that new release cadence that we're doing too, just like the faster kind of bites, similar to what VS Code does. I feel like for years there's always been the feedback of, I wish you would update faster, get parity with whatever VS Code is doing sometimes. And hopefully this new tight shortened release schedule helps alleviate some of that.
Yeah, I mean, even with like 17.14, the most recent Visual Studio 2022 release, we've been speeding up how often we ship updates to make sure that we stay on top of the latest changes coming from Copilot. Like I think we're averaging almost 2 a month, if not 115 or so releases coming up. And so we definitely want to get the changes out quicker. And so everyone can take advantage of them sooner, especially in a world where we're finding innovations cropping up like really quickly. Like the previous turnaround time, quarterly updates, 3 months for us, wasn't really helping us in terms of being, responsive and allowing people to use the latest stuff, because more of the stuff obviously is happening on the server side or a service generated through AI, etc. And so it's great to be able to get those bits out and help people update. And get the latest features and bug fixes, to be fair, and performance improvements as they happen.
Cool.
So,
and
I will say one fun little tidbit that people probably are not aware of is that Visual Studio is, aside from being one of the largest apps in the world, if not the largest app in the world, we ship Visual Studio very frequently. And you might not know this because not all update that we push out goes to everybody. Because let's say that you're a C++ developer and you have, the C++ tools in Visual Studio. If there's an update that only targets like .NET, then you will not get that up. You'll not be prompted, hey, there is an update, you want to install it. It doesn't go. So not all updates go to everybody. But at any given week, we actually ship about 3 to 4 times of Visual Studio, the world's largest app. So it's like the infrastructure team that we have around release it's very, very impressive that they can pull this off. And so that's not to minimize like the shift to the monthly release, which was actually also a huge change in how we do things internally and push the bits out. But that team is more than capable of handling these situations. So it's very cool.
Yep. Awesome. And before we keep going, we do have a couple of questions from chat, mostly around like, when is it out? I saw a question about when is it expected to release? Good news, it's out. Go try it now. Go download it. I'll put the link in there when I get the chance in the chat. But but does anyone remember the URL off the top of their head? It's just like visualstudio.com or something like that. I mean, if you Google Visual Studio, you'll be able to find it. It's pretty in your face. So go try it out now. There was another question about when will Visual Studio 2026 be available for download with a professional subscription? Are there any licensing concerns if I try it now?
Go for it.
Yeah, you can try it.
Yep. You can, when you download, if you go to visualstudio.com/insiders, and on the download button, you decide if you want community, professional, or enterprise. So if you have a pro subscription, grab the pro SKU.
Yep.
Cool. And there was a question about, does the version require an internet connection other than GitHub pushes? I don't think it does.
Some features,
maybe.
Yeah. So like some features do, like installation where you have to download the components, or some features that make use of online services, like if that's Azure or GitHub or any source control provider. So in general, no, you can run Visual Studio offline, but it depends. So some features specifically need online capabilities. And so, that your experience will vary depending on what you're using. It may work just fine. And of course, if you're using something like Copilot, obviously it won't work. And if you're trying to, like you said, push to Git, then that also won't work. Unless, of course, it's local Git for some reason.
Sweet.
Okay. So that was a kind of question. So the Copilot stuff definitely requires internet. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Figured as much.
Cool. So yeah, going back to talking about large themes, since we're on the topic of Copilot, let's talk about that for a minute. Like a lot more integration organically, I think, with this new version, right? A lot more that's just kind of built into the default Visual Studio experience from the moment you open it. If you have a Copilot account, which if you don't, Copilot free exists as well. So that's really exciting. We're going to talk about some of those new features. And of course, we have to address the elephant in the room, which is when you first open Visual Studio. It looks pretty. The new UX. Like, I think that's the most obvious change if you were to download it right now, right?
Is that the elephant in the room?
I don't know if it's an elephant. It's a Giselle.
So I will
Prancing across
just
the
share a
screen.
story, one of my favorite Visual Studio stories. I don't know if, and I know this is dating me, but years ago, there was a controversy because the menu choices at the top all became all caps instead of camel case. And there was tons and tons of gnashing of teeth and discussion about it. And I caught wind of this and I'm like, what are y'all talking about? And then I launched my Visual Studio, and then, and only then, did I notice that the menu choices were all in caps. It had happened and I never noticed it. So I think I definitely like the new UI. It's definitely cool. We should definitely talk about it, but I don't know that I'd call it the elephant in the room.
That was the wrong phrase for it, but it's the most obvious thing when you first open.
I think it's a little bit, right? Because the amount of time, and some person in the comments were calling this out earlier, like you're spending, all day, every day in Visual Studio. So I like to think of it like it's your way away from home because you're spending half your waking life in Visual Studio. Like Visual Studio is one of those rare apps where that's the case. And so it really matters what things look like, how they like the look and feel. It's almost like the smell too, right? And just like in your house, like you care if you have hardwood floors or you have carpets. You care what color walls you've got. And so, yeah, it's a small thing, but because it's every day, all day, it becomes a big thing. And that's why like having that feeling of a little bit of an outdated UI that we may have felt, with Visual Studio 2022 is so important that we now finally get that modern, sleek, crisp edges, modern design language, and then all the new color themes. And it's also easier to make color themes. So we're probably going to see an explosion of those. And so you just personalize it more. It becomes more your home. And I think that's the importance of it. Not that it's all new colors and that's it. That's right. That misses the mark.
And it's definitely beyond colors and the control. Like some of the controls and new controls, like the split control, for example, are really nice. But we've also taken this opportunity to redesign some of the interfaces. Like obviously the extension, the extension manager and the settings UI is different. And so it's much easier to use than the old tools options. So it's like much more than just those superficial control changes, but whole parts of the product have been touched and updated that hadn't been done in a long while, to be fair, and they're much easier to use and search and find things now.
It definitely feels smoother, right? I mean, I think even if you don't know why up front, when you open up options or you open up the extension manager, it feels less jarring because it's not a big dialogue that shows up. It's the same, a lot of the same options in there, but it just feels like it's a little bit more part of the IDE. It feels like it's a little bit smoother, less of a context shift. So, even if you don't at first notice why it feels smoother, it definitely does.
I think to add to that, it feels more beautiful. I mean, that's the word I've been using. It's more beautiful. And we have been using the dog food version internally, right? Like it is more different when you have the older version and the newer version at the same machine. You will see the difference right away. So you open the newer version, you will see, okay, this is something brand new, more beautiful, more colorful. So I think definitely something very, very beautiful.
Yeah. And it's cool to see with the official editions of like the new settings experience, as you mentioned, Robert, a little bit, like kind of being its own tab instead of a pop-up dialog window.
Yeah.
Same with like the extension manager and other things that in the past we've associated with just random pop-ups that don't allow you to do anything else in Visual Studio unless you leave that dialog window. It's cool. It feels a lot more smooth. And on the topic of smoothness, performance has gotten a lot of updates, not just in the installation, as we mentioned, but just as a whole, I think, from like opening up VS for the first time to opening up a solution, opening files. I mean, what am I missing?
Yeah.
At 5, I would say debugging performance.
Ooh, yeah.
And it's not done yet. We are keep updating that, so it's coming. It's going to be more faster in upcoming releases.
So Ian had a question. Are we planning on demoing it or screen shared or just to review? We thought that we would, to the extent possible, kind of shy away from just making this all about demos, since there's a number of videos already out there. There'll be a number of videos coming. So we thought that we would, in this episode, in this release party, just spend maybe a little bit more time talking and less time showing, as we have in the past. So,
and more time answering your questions.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Try it out as you're listening to this, and feel free to share your feedback and feel free to ask any questions that you got along the way.
Just on that point of performance, like obviously a lot of time in performance, we think of like the elapsed time, how long it takes from get A to B. But part of what we've really been focusing on as well is enabling the UI to be responsive much more frequently. So like today, if you start, you notice there's a little X in the load window. You can cancel loading because it's all asynchronous in the background. So the UI thread is still busy drawing essentially. So that also really helps with the responsiveness and feeling of performance, because we've tried and done a lot of re-architecture to move stuff off the UI thread as much as possible to enable it to run faster, but also to not block. So you can continue to do things even as it waits and is busy.
Awesome. Oh, another question in the chat. When are we getting the stable public release? I don't know if we have an answer for that yet, but
we don't. We don't have there's no public date we've announced yet for it, but you can imagine like we're shipping with .NET 10 in the boxes. You probably notice if you've picked up 2026, so that might be a clue, but we've not announced.
Cool. And also, first time trying a preview version, how best for us to test and provide feedback. The developer community is your best friend for that. Either go to that website, or even better, you can go into like the help tab in VS, and there's an option along the lines of like report an issue or request a feature.
Feedback, report a problem, or suggest a feature.
Yeah, and if you do it directly through VS, it's even better for all parties involved, because we're also getting that additional system information and other context that you may not necessarily think about adding if you were to just go to the website directly. So ultimately, it helps us out to address the problem faster, because we don't have to ask a follow-up question before we can even begin to process what the bug or the problem is. So would highly recommend doing it through the IDE itself.
Okay, so Ben wants us to talk about more major dev features. Good
yeah,
idea.
Well,
good idea, Ben.
Features. Cool. So let's start with the Copilot integration stuff, because I think that's some of the big stuff, and also because I saw a comment earlier that was specifically like, let's talk about Copilot integrations. So there's a lot of stuff going on. I mean, we've got stuff that was introduced a little bit in the previous VS version in 17.14, but is making its way officially like out of preview mode into the actual release. So we've got stuff like adaptive paste and Copilot actions in the context menu. I really like code review, like the improved code review situation with Copilot. That's really cool. But Rachel, do you want to share more about what some of your favorite additions are in that space?
Yeah, absolutely. I know that the ask was, beyond performance improvements and beyond the prettiness, like what's new, but I really want to emphasize how much those improvements have also benefited the Copilot experience. Like, I think back to 6 months ago, the first time, or I don't know, maybe it was even more before then, but when I first tried agent mode in Visual Studio earlier this year, I remember how long it took, honestly, from my first prompt to see those changes in my editor. And I was using live preview with my Maui app. So seeing those changes visually update too, it took a long time to get to where I wanted it to be. But then I tried again in the new version of Visual Studio yesterday. And I tried the same exact scenario that I tried just earlier this year. And it was more than 10 times faster than it was. And that was just reflecting on that was mind blowing to me. So if y'all haven't checked out Copilot yet, and especially agent mode, definitely check it out. It's really way faster. And especially when you're using it side by side with the other tools in Visual Studio, like Live Preview and Hot Reload and all of the other goodness, it really all comes together. And that's like part of what we're saying with having a better Copilot integrated experience too. Everything is just like working a lot more smoothly together, and the performance improvements are a huge part of the why.
Yeah. And it does seem like, and this is a known example that's listed in the release notes, but Copilot's getting better context. It's being able to pick up on additional parts of your code, such as symbols that you're bringing with you with your C# code bases. And you've also got line number understanding, which historically I've had a bad time with in the past, but I can't wait to try that out now, where if you say what's going on at line 27, it's not going to get immediately confused, which is great. Just little things like that make those experiences a lot more helpful to you as a developer. So looking forward to seeing more of that. And again, the context additions for Copilot integrations, I think that's cool too, with the ability to like explain or fix just like directly within the editor instead of having to use chat if you don't want to do that. And also something I want to note is the bring your own model addition to Copilot chat. I think that's pretty cool as well. It's like bring your own beer, except bring your own model. So it's like if none of the default ones are doing it for you, then yeah, you can just bring in your own, whether it's like a custom model or a model that we just don't have in the IDE by default. So lots of good stuff there.
So
I think one way to think about this update too, because now people have been talking about, okay, performance, UI, Copilot, right? You can think of those three things as kind of foundational updates as well. So the 2026 insiders here has like a it's like a platform update, almost like a foundational update that integrates Copilot deeper, that re-architectures some things around how we think about performance in Visual Studio. Like Visual Studio does things very differently now because of performance. So there's a foundational update on that part. And then there's the UI where we talk modern, fluent UI with accessibility front and center. So from the UI perspective, it's a foundational update. It's stuff that allows us to build other things on top of going forward. So for those three pillars, you should think of it, hey, this is just the beginning. We're laying a foundation. So now what we're going to do with it is going to be really interesting going forward. Not to say that we don't have anything on top of it right now, we do, but that's kind of just to give a little bit more context.
Yeah. Just someone on the comments just made a comment about the bring your own model. So yeah, at the moment we just support like Azure Foundry, the OpenAI and from it. But what you can also do is there's a DevCon ticket. Like we published a roadmap for Copilot on the blog, so you can go look at the September Copilot blog, and you'll find a link to adding custom URLs for endpoints. So any endpoint for a model, and you can upvote that and give your feedback. So the other thing, like I mentioned earlier, we're trying to be much more transparent about what we're working on. So you'll see like more detailed, like, hey, this is what we're working on. We might not ship it next month, but we're certainly working on it and want your feedback. So, encourage you to go check out that blog. And then the other thing I think, to call out, and Leslie briefly mentioned, is the release notes. If you have a feature that you're interested in and we don't get to answer it in this chat, go to the release notes and search. Like hot reload, for example. Yeah, there are improvements for hot reload. You can make more edits now and it will reload without errors. There's an auto restart property. So just go to the release notes. There's a ton of them, and look for the features that impact you. And you can see where the improvements have been made.
I tried to put that a link, Robert. Maybe you can do that from the official account. I tried to link to the release notes, but it wouldn't allow me. Yeah.
Oh,
Really?
that's weird.
It worked for me.
Hey.
Must have been a user error.
But yeah, it's a little long, but I think if you just look up VS 2026 Insiders, and then if you come back to this video after we're done being live, we're going to update the description with all of these links so you can click on it directly from there too. So
there's a bunch of questions like what else is there? Like there's a lot of stuff there. So I'm going to just mention one which I've been on my wish list for a long time. And that's code coverage. Code coverage used to be an enterprise only feature. And now we put it down into pro and in community, the free community. So everybody can get code coverage. So when you run testing, you get your code coverage. You can see exactly what you covered and what needs to have a higher coverage or whatever for your.
And that's visual too. If you've never used this, because maybe you just never used the feature before, if you have enterprise or you don't have enterprise, it's great. It highlights pretty much every aspect of your code that is covered. And if it's not highlighted, then you got some tests to write maybe, or get Copilot to write some tests for you.
A few people in the chat are mentioning errors with Roslyn. So there is a known issue that some people will encounter where we fail to load Roslyn. So IntelliSense and other things won't work. You'll typically see like a stack of 3 different messages. So there's a DevCon ticket with a workaround posted, and we have a fix. Hopefully we're publishing shortly for that. So if you are seeing a stack of errors, there's a workaround for you. You have to delete a file on your disk, and then you should be able to fix that.
Okay.
But it is a known issue.
While we're on the topic of features, Giri Renew, I don't know if I pronounced that right. It'd be great if dev containers were supported in VS like in code. And I think the best way to share that feedback is by going to the dev community and putting that in there. So again, if you go to help, send feedback, suggest a feature right from inside Visual Studio, that goes to the dev community, and now you're talking directly to the product team. And I think that's the best way to report not only on errors, but on things you'd like to see in the product.
Yep. And tell your friends, your coworkers who also probably have a similar gripe to upvote that when you're done too, because that's usually how we prioritize. But I promise you, real people like us, we do read those and we do make decisions based off of them and the demand for them. Like if you go into the release notes again, I know I'm pushing the release notes, but I'm telling you, check it out if you want the full comprehensive list of everything that got added this version. There's a little what do you call it? I don't know, speaker icon that's next to certain features. And that indicates that was a feature that derived from a user request. So, and there's a lot of speaker icons in the release notes right now if you scroll. So
it's a megaphone. It's the megaphone.
Yeah, megaphone. There we go. Yeah, forgot the word for it.
Harshada, do you want to talk a little bit about the profiler agent?
Sure.
That's a big feature.
I think we have a lot of stuff in diagnostics overall, but I think not the elephant in the room, but I think the biggest thing for us was the profiler agent. We had the glimpse of it in the VS Live recently. It's been out there on the video has been out there on the YouTube and everywhere, but now we're super excited to put it in everyone's hand. I think the main idea behind the profiler agent is anyone can profile. You don't have to be an expert. Just go ask the profiler agent to help you with make any of your code faster or just optimize or help find any memory usage bottlenecks. So yeah, we're super excited for that. Just give it a try and let us know your feedback. I think there is one more thing which I wanted to mention to that. I think in general, the diagnostics theme for 2026, at least from the diagnostic team, is to make it simple for everyone. Not just the debugging, the profiling, and overall all the experience. To another To add to that, we have a whole new UI experience when you launch your profiling tools. So if you don't want to use agent yet, that's fine. You just go to your own routine to use the new tools, the existing tools. But now it can actually let you know which tool is more suitable for the problem you have. You can just ask there in the natural language, hey, I have this issue, and then we can recommend the correct tool for you. I think that also makes it much more faster and simpler to figure out or investigate all the issues you have. So there are a few more features which you can read in the release note, but these two are one of my favorite, or two of my favorite.
Yeah, profiling in general got
Dr.
huge
Snuggle,
boost. Over question.
Dr. Snuggles asked about C++.
Yes, to that, we actually just also added a CMake support, not exactly the CMake, but like C++, but now the diagnostics profiling tools will support the CMake projects as well. So the CPU usage tool, the IO file tool, the memory usage, those will be supported for the CMake. I think C++, it's a little non-issue, so we have been working on that. And as I said, this was the first step to add the CMake support, and we'll be adding more for overall C++ as well.
Sweet.
Democratized diagnostics. Thanks, Nick.
Yeah.
Nick.
If you don't know who Nick is awesome. He's one of the awesome people responsible for that profiling agent, just the profiling space in general. So shout out to Nick.
I think Nick replied to a comment on DevCom just today about C++ support. So you can also go to the DevCom ticket for Copilot agent and the profiler agent and add plus on that.
Nice. Yeah, and just try out the profiler in general. That's my plug. Because if you haven't now, now is the time, because it got such a major update with this new release too. And like you mentioned, the UX release, but also I like the recommendations tab. That's pretty new, where you get like smart suggestions based off of what your project is on which tools to use.
Yeah, anything that makes it easier to use and simpler is awesome, because I can see how when you do profile and go look at it, it can be daunting, and you're like, okay, so I spend 80% of my time here. Okay, good to know. Now what? What do I do about that? So anything to make it easier and get more help in there is awesome.
I think that's exactly it, Robert, because I've been using the profiler for years, and I love that it helps me find like bottlenecks and hot paths in my code, find the expensive lines. And then I'm like, well, okay, so here's my expensive line of like a link query or something. What can I do with that? Like, how do I actually, like, I'm not very low level. I don't know how to go down deep in C# and stuff. And so having that, someone open that door for me and say, hey, here's how you can do it. Do you want me to help you? Right?
Yeah.
That, before that door was closed, it was impossible. I couldn't go deeper. I couldn't do better. I have over 200 extensions that I maintain, and so I can't like spend too much time on all the code bases that I own. So it's like I was never able to go deep, and now I can just ask the tool, and it will give me an answer in a minute. Like say, hey, this is how you do this in a much faster way, and I'm like, wow, thank you for showing me.
Yes.
And so what I've noticed is that when I encounter these things again and again, I remember. So what I think is cool is like it opens the door that was otherwise closed to me, but it doesn't enter that door on its own. It takes me with it, right? And so I become better. And what was before impossible to me is now possible. So I think that's the real awesomeness of the profiler agent. And it's just the beginning, right, Harshada? This is basically the first feature on top of this foundational update that I was mentioning.
Yes, and I think the best part to add to you, it not just tells you or not just helps you to bring there, because we add benchmarks there, it gives you the validation right there in the chat. So, okay, this was the time it took before, and then when you run your benchmark after adding suggestions, it will tell you right in the chat that this much is the performance improvement, or this is how much code optimized. So I think you get the instant validation or evaluation right there in the chat. That gives you not just the confidence, but it also gives you, okay, I was able to do something right here. And if not, you always can go and try again and work with the agent to make as much as performance improvements you want.
Yeah. I mean, it's lastly, sorry, just chime in and pile on. It's a great example of using an IDE and the tools in an IDE with AI. Like literally anyone can use any AI and generate a prompt that says, make this faster, make this arbitrary file or this app faster. But what the odds that's going to be successful? Like unless the tool you're using has a profiler that runs the application, collects the data and identifies the hotspots, you don't even know if that bubble sort your prompt is identified is even called. So this is a great example of using the all the knowledge and heuristics and analysis tools the profiler has with the visualizations and with AI to close that last door of like getting you started, getting you some code generated, which is like Matt said, always been the challenge in the past is we can point you to the problem, but we can rarely point you to a fix. But now we can really use the profiler to guide Copilot to the place to find a fix and to generate a fix.
Yeah, so just to add to Nick's comment, you don't have to be a performance expert to improve the performance of your code. Anyone should be able to do that.
Oh, and Rick is asking if this is a separate install. It's like, no, it's built in, isn't it?
It's not. We would have a block coming out soon, but it's super easy. You just have to go in your agent mode and either tag profiler agent, like add the profiler, or just ask, help me optimize my code, and it should actually point you to the profiler agent. Okay. So just have to go in the Copilot chat. You don't have to install anything else.
Awesome. If you're still having issues, dev community, your new best friend if it's not already.
And someone had asked can you elaborate on the code review feature? So the release notes talk about, where is it? Better code reviews AI. Who wants to chat about that a little?
I can share a little bit of an overview at least. I think it'd be we'll keep a mental note to maybe make that a full Toolbox episode because code review is really cool and it's brand new to a lot of people who aren't enterprise users already. But overall, it is a way to let you see both visually and via table what parts of your code are currently covered by existing tests that you have. So like unit tests, CI/CD, any of that. A lot of this you can have automated so that code coverage automatically happens as you're writing tests, as you are expanding on your code. You can see like a tabular view. There's like a code coverage window that you can open up in VS that will give you a tabular representation of which blocks of code are currently covered by which test and stuff like that. So you have an awareness of what gaps you need to fill if you're doing the test-driven development, especially. So
one of the other features for the Git code review tools is, like, I think we've all had this experience where you have a set of changes, you're ready to make your PR, you push it, and you get a bunch of feedback that you could probably caught earlier. Maybe it's typos or something straightforward. So one of the new features with Copilot in Visual Studio is you can do that code review locally. So the idea is that rather than just push your changes to a place where your entire team can see and provide feedback, you can just run it locally first and get the feedback that the Copilot and will pick up, and you can make those changes locally. So before you can push with some confidence that the immediate things won't be picked up, and everyone can focus their time reviewing the code in things that are more productive and save time for all.
Oh, it looks like were we talking about the wrong one? Because there is also code reviews, which maybe that was the other ask. I mean, we can definitely talk about that too, because that's a big deal. Who wants to take that one? I can speak to it a little bit, but I actually haven't used it yet, so I can't fully gush.
For the code coverage?
Code reviews.
Oh, that was when I just rambled too, which is basically
right, there you go.
Locally now, and you get feedback locally before you push.
Yeah, and there's like a little icon under, I think, the Git changes pane that indicates like Copilot, and you click on that, and it'll give you comments and stuff about.
Yeah, so basically, rather than having to create your own comment for a check-in, Copilot will figure out what you changed and then create the comment for you, which makes it certainly more accurate, longer, more detailed, but it literally says what you did. So
yeah, there's
large work out of the commenting.
There's a Copilot feature in code review to help you generate the actual commit messages whenever you commit your code, but also to help you generate your description for your pull request. So that's definitely super helpful because I've definitely stalled a lot, being like, okay, just update or blah or like whatever random message.
Spend all this time writing the code and testing it. It's perfect. And the last thing you now want to do is have to sit there and go, and now I have to write a comment. It's almost like having to write docs, right? Anything the product can do to write that for you is better.
Speaking of comments, you get that too. So when you're working with pull request, you get to see the inline comments from the code reviewer now in Visual Studio. So like you no longer have to go to GitHub or ADO, whatever Azure DevOps rather, whatever you're using, you can do all that within Visual Studio.
Right.
So good.
So,
as for how long does it take to generate those commit messages? I mean, from my personal experience, I feel like it depends. Like how much did you update?
Yeah. How big is the delta? Yeah.
Yeah. So, but usually not too long. I mean,
quicker than you typing them.
Seconds.
Yeah. So I think we mentioned this earlier, and I know there's at the bottom of the blog post, this is mentioned, but do we just want to briefly talk about this? So when it's a known error, errors are seen immediately following a new install. It's already in the developer community, and there is a workaround, which I will report works perfectly. So, and again, sorry for the really long URLs, but I just copy and paste. But if
this is one of the reasons we do insiders, right, or pre-releasing, is to find and fix all this before we do a stable. So hopefully it's not too bad.
So you just basically need to go clear a cache. It's pretty easy directions, and it works like a champ. So
sweet. Real quick, I want to go back to debugging land for a sec because y'all know it's my favorite. But the one like tiny, small but mighty feature addition that got added but didn't get talked about yet, the inline return values. That's awesome. I love that so much. I wanted that for so long. I like having inline intel like that. But if you haven't seen it yet, y'all, if you're in debug mode, sometimes it's annoying if where you just want to be able to see what value is going to get returned by like a function or by the return keyword and stuff, just in the editor proper instead of having to open up another window like autos or watch or something. And now you can, because when you like step away, it's just automatically listed what's getting returned by that function. Or
you don't have to deal with those temporary variables anymore. It should be there in your editor. And again, this is just a start. In the new version, we will be bringing more scenarios to support this. So definitely a real time saver.
Yep. Oh, somebody suggested I try Writer. Yeah, I think that feature did exist in Writer for a time. I dabbled in Writer a little bit, and I was like, oh, that's cool. I wish VS had that. So now it does. So very exciting.
We had the return values in the watch window for decades at this point, but never on the editor surface. You had to know the dollar, like in secret handshake, to get that.
Yeah. I still demo that all the time.
There were ways before to get the values, but I think this one is just easier because it's right there in there.
Yeah. It's not a secret dollar symbol that you have to put into the window in order to see. So
Ben wants to know about, is it safe to install the preview on my main dev machine alongside VS 2022 or any other versions, I would imagine?
Yeah, it should be. The only thing to consider is, of course, it brings along the new .NET SDK and other things. So machine-wide things, it brings along might change your currently installed machine-wide things.
Yep, but you can have, I've got 22, I've got 22 preview, I've got 26 all sitting next to each other, and they all work fine.
Me too. Yeah. I use my dev box most of the time when I'm using any IDE. So yeah, I've got like 4 versions of VS plus like VS Code and stuff all lined up in a row, working fine.
And if you do see build warnings, because you've got the new .NET SDK, you can still use global.json to pin specific versions of the SDK and make sure you have those installed, and then you'll use the right SDK for your right project. Because of course the default in .NET is to use the latest SDK.
So actually, on the side by side, I have a question. So at this point, with 2026 insiders out, will there be a big difference between 2022 and 2022 previews?
No, they're actually the same. So if you're on the preview channel of 2022, you are getting the same updates as you are if you were on the current. It's called the current or the stable channel, or release channel, if you will, of 2022. So we made sure that because we have not done any new previews, like on the preview channel, so we dropped the exact same content version updates on both channels.
Ideally, you should move from the 2022 preview channel to the Insiders, 2026 Insiders.
Okay.
Because in general, the preview channel, like Matt's saying, today we're keeping it the same, but it's not supported in the same way. So in the future, it might not get updates. So you should definitely, if you're on the preview channel, move to the Insiders. That's the best path forward. And we'll probably start using some in-product notifications to encourage that. Like, we want you all to move off the 2020 preview makes no sense anymore, essentially.
Got it. Thank you.
I wanna address a question. This is back from 10:03 o'clock from Vertsui, maybe. Do we really need the 64 gigabytes of RAM and 16 CPU cores as stated on the download page? I don't know if you can find it, Robert.
Well, I saw a similar question that's like,
how critical is
have 64?
Oh, here. Oh, okay. There's another one. Okay. So we've gotten a bunch of questions around this. So let's just be absolutely clear, and this is our fault, to be quite honest, why there is this confusion. The minimum requirements for Visual Studio has not changed since Visual Studio 2019. It was the same through 2022, well, except that you have to be on 64-bit, I guess. But that was the only change, and it's the same now in 2026. What we're saying is that it's best on 16 logical cores and 64 gigs of RAM. And the reason we say that is because we know for a fact that when we run our benchmarks against 2022 and 2026 and so on, we know that on that very same hardware, apples to apples comparison, 2026 is a lot faster and more responsive on that hardware. So when we say, hey, it's best on this hardware, it's because we can scientifically prove that it is. That being said, also anytime you have more cores, you're going to see an improvement because of the way that we did this re-architecture. And just for reference, I don't have 64 gigs of memory. I have 32, and it's smooth as butter. Okay, so you don't need that. You don't need 16 logical cores. If you got 4, then you're going to feel a lot faster than if you had 2. And if you have 8, you're going to feel faster than if you had 4. And if you're up to 16, the competition from other processors around your computer is going to be less to take all the cores, and you'll have more available for the ones Visual Studio needs to do all the parallelization work that it's doing now that it didn't used to do before.
And just to panel that, it's a very specific, remember, you don't need 64 gigs of RAM, and we'll have a blog that talks more about performance in the future. For what it's worth, the big difference between 64 and 32 is we just see that .NET will run 4 different GC heaps. So one of the big reasons you see lag in .NET applications is a GC, a garbage collection, is happening, and UI threads busy. So by dividing those up, there's, how should you say, they're quicker and less impactful. So there is that difference, but it will run on a much, much lower spec. I don't have 64-bit gear either, to be honest. So.
Yeah. But it has to do with the way that we're, for instance, starting up Visual Studio or loading solutions, is that instead of doing some of the work sequentially, so we do like 50 milliseconds work here, and then we tag on another 100 milliseconds after that, and then 10 milliseconds after that, all in sequence. We're now splitting that out to run in parallel. So you can imagine how big of a architectural infrastructure change that has been to be able to do that. But that explains several things. Why it's faster is one thing, but also why multiple logical cores will make a difference, because it can do multiple things at the same time.
Cool. I do like the comment, but I really wanted to convince my IT to give me the 64 gig laptop.
So we've actually had several people saying, hey, thank you, that I can take this to my boss, right, that has refused to give me more memory.
Yeah.
In the past. So you know.
Hey, Mads, here's one for you.
Ooh,
Extensions.
that's a good question.
Yeah,
Do they need to update extensions that they've written for 2026, or how does that all work?
you don't. For the first time in Visual Studio history, your Visual Studio 2022 extension is forward compatible with 2026. So we've never had a forward compatible extension story before, but we do this time. So if it works on 2022, it will install on 2026. So when you load the extension manager inside Visual Studio, it will list all extensions that from the marketplace that claim to work on 2022. So what I do recommend you do is that you try it and see if it does work, or if your extension does something super specific 2022 kind of almost illegal type of thing, that is totally not supported and whatnot, then maybe you won't work. But I think from a compatibility perspective, we're like in the 90, high 90%. And I have not seen extension so far that has not worked.
Yeah.
If it's a regular V6 extension and it's not like an XE or MSI install or whatever, it should just work. TM.
That is so exciting, because if anyone remembers the stress back when BS 2022 came out, I certainly did, because I was on the extensibility team and had to worry about that. Trying to get all those popular extensions to be compatible, especially in the new 64-bit land at the time, was so challenging. And I know a lot of you felt it, where for some of you, certain extensions are like an integral part of your development world. So, yeah.
And we've had, some of the big extension partners, they've had early bits to verify everything works and be able to do new versions, right? So yeah, ReSharper is there and that works, and DevExpress and others. And then a bunch of the, all the SQL Server ones from Eric EJ, the EF Core extensions are all there. All my extensions work, the ones I've tested. Yeah, it's a really good story all around. You don't have to do anything, but we recommend that you test just in case.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we need to clarify a little bit. Ryan asks, if preview doesn't make any sense anymore, can you explain a bit about the monthly updates? So
yeah. So the reason it doesn't make sense is those updates are going to release and preview at the same time. So the release and preview for 2022 are essentially the same at the moment. There isn't a concept for a preview. They're just shipping at the same time. And so they will continue to monthly update and more frequently probably 2022 with updates. And it goes to both channels at the same time. So previously in the past, preview would get things before you'd get them in the release channel, but that's no longer the case.
For 2022.
For 2022, yeah. For insiders, obviously, it was the only one in town at the moment, so
yeah,
it's definitely going to get it before anything else.
And then moving forward in 2026, the insiders release will play the role of the preview, and that will be new features that are coming. So the concept continues to make sense. We're just saying that at this particular point in time for 2022, the preview release will not be getting new features ahead of the regular or the stable release.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
So I want to go around the room real quick. I kind of shared my favorite feature already, but quick, what's your favorite feature in the new release? Doesn't have to be something you worked on. Who wants to go?
I can go first. Apart from Profile Agent, obviously, I think file exclusions. So if you've ever searched and you found a result in a generated file, like a .g file, and you looked into it and kind of been frustrated, there's now file exclusions for search, which is really useful.
Good one. Anybody else?
I can go next. I have one that's an old. I think I've been asked this question before, and I think I give it a different answer every time because it's hard to choose. But an old one that I've been wanting for a long time, I actually wrote an extension for it, is the ability to have, you have multiple, typically a Visual Studio user will have multiple different instances of Visual Studio open to work on either different branches of the same solution or different solutions. And so how do you tell them apart really easily? And so the idea of having a new color theme applied to each open instance makes it very easy to kind of see, oh yeah, I'm in the pink solution or the green solution or whatever, right? And so the way the new settings work is that all the settings, because it's now backed by JSON, it's just a JSON file. Those settings, you can now say, hey, I want to take some of the settings and put in my repo or in my solution. And they will override the system settings, the user settings. So whenever you open that solution, those settings are being read from a JSON file that now lives next to your solution file, SLN file or SLNX file, and applied. And it's only the delta, only the settings you want changed that's stored in there. So I can now have just one line in my JSON that says what the name of the color theme is that I want. And so now when I switch between the different instances, I have different color themes. And as soon as I close that solution, we unload the setting that was applied from the repo, and boom, you're back to whatever your user default theme is. And so I think that's just from a long-standing kind of feature request, to have it finally here is pretty awesome.
Yeah, I remember when that was just an extension. That's cool.
I'm going to say the better code reviews AI, the inline pull request comments, the idea that Copilot is writing comments and messages for me so I don't have to sit there and rehash what I just spent hours and hours coding. I love that. And of course, I can always make edits to it if I want, but the fact that it's keeping track of what I'm doing and will write it down for me without me having to keep the notes, I love that.
I can go next. I think apart from all the features in the diagnostic area, I also like using adapt to paste. Like if I'm experimenting and trying to get some code from the internet, or even I think it's super easy now, and I'm pasting my code there. I don't have to make any adjustment. It will just automatically adjust it. So I'll get less code errors and I can do more experimenting.
Awesome. And Rachel, you got one?
Oh yeah. Oh, sorry. I didn't realize I was next. I think Copilot Actions is definitely up there for me. So being able to right click in my editor and not just be able to ask Copilot something, but to click on a specific Copilot action. So I can say, explain this or generate the stock or whatever it is. Having those options just readily available for me is super convenient.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, agreed.
Yep.
That would have been my second after the settings if I had.
I wanted to say the colors too, but you were talking about that. I love pink, so having my pink ID all the time is just fun. It sparks joy,
I like the cool blue one. That one's there by default. It's just like
not the bubblegum one.
Yeah. Awesome. So I know we're hitting an hour. There was one question I wanted to quickly get to before we close out, since I know it's been asked a couple times. Are there any updates to the WinForms designer specifically? That's what I've been seeing. Which I don't have a good answer on that, but
I don't either. Andy, have you heard? I haven't heard anything, but that doesn't mean there's not something.
Yeah, so obviously they benefited from some of the performance improvements and things like that, but I don't think there's been any new features added to the WinForms designer, to be honest. Release notes has the whole list.
Yeah, and if you don't see what you're looking for there, dev community, definitely report a feature or request a new feature. And from there, quick calls to action, since we're at the point of wrap up. Obviously, we couldn't talk about every feature in the world that's been introduced in the new Insiders build, because there is a lot. So as we said a bajillion times, check out the release notes, download Insiders for yourself and try it out. There's no cost to it. Be sure to share your feedback, ideally directly through VS. You can do that. Just go to the help tab and click report an issue, request a feature.
I will also add to it that we will be blogging about in depth about these individual features and all that type of stuff on the Visual Studio blog. And so you'll see weekly drops of hopefully answers to some of the questions we didn't get to today. But we'll do much more detailed stuff. Like this first announcement blog post was meant to be kind of just hear some of the big things, but not go into too much detail, right? So we didn't add too much noise to the conversation, but you'll see all that kind of drip in the months ahead.
And then
Yeah.
there's also obviously the usual videos that the Visual Studio team does. There will also be Visual Studio Toolbox episodes for the blog posts that Matt's just talked about. So there'll be all kinds of opportunities to see and learn about what's in there.
Yep. So if you wanted your demos today and you didn't get it, hold your horses. They're coming in full force. So yeah. And yeah, I think with that concludes our hour-long release party. Once again, go try it out for yourself. Thank you, Andy, Harshada, Rachel, and Mads for being on the show today. Super fun chatting with y'all as always. And yeah, and shout out to the wider VS team and .NET team. I should also note, if you're somebody who likes to use the latest greatest .NET bit, so in this case .NET 10, and you want to use the latest greatest C#, which is C# 14, all of that is available in the new VS 2026 by default, so you don't have to install any additional stuff once you open that up. So give that a try as well. And
shout out to and thank you to all of the viewers. We smashed our record for most views in a live Toolbox today. So woohoo!
Yeah. Yes. So thank you for all of your great questions. Really great questions. Super important. Much appreciated. It gives us some insight into what's important to you. And yeah, happy Visual Studio 2026 Insiders release day. I know it's a mouthful, but stay tuned for more content. And
thanks all.
Yeah. Till next time, happy coding, y'all. Thanks, everybody.